we're on.
You know that we're starting. Thanks.
Ding, ding.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Can I get a roll call, please?
Sure, Maxine Dawson,
Here.
Samuel Plaistow,
Here.
Dennis Heffernan,
Here.
there you are. Lori Millette,
Here.
Robert Zukas. Darrell Breton,
Here.
Peter Bracci,
Here.
Bob Hamilton,
Here.
Julian Kiska,
Here.
Jay DeRoche. Amy, Charlie.
Awesome. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I passed out packets that has the minutes for December 3rd, 2019 meeting, December 10th, 2019 meeting, and January 7th, 2020 meeting. Does anyone have any immediate changes to
What was the January meeting? I don't think there's a date on that.
January
one.
7th?
Right, there's no date on that one. We're gonna do them all, we gotta do them one at a time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what are we starting with?
December.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from December 3rd, 2019.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Bob? Discussion? Yes.
I have a change, just that in the roll call, my name isn't mentioned at all, and Jay's is twice, so I think there might have been a mistake there, that mine should have been underneath you. So I didn't miss a meeting.
Bob?
I'd just like to comment that these meeting minutes are very nice, very thorough. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions on December 3rd's meeting? Okay, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for December 3rd, 2019?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstained? So-
Stay.
Oh, Pete, you weren't at that meeting?
No. I wasn't there.
Okay. I don't remember if you were there or not.
I was here, I just wasn't voting member. It says I wasn't.
Okay, we can look at December 10th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from December 10th, 2019.
Is there a second? I'll second. Discussion?
Hang on a second, there was one in here, I don't remember which meeting it was. No, go ahead, I guess it wasn't this one, I can't find it.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the December 10th meeting minutes as is? Say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? January 7th, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion on the floor to approve January 7th meeting minutes? Bob?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 7th.
I'll second. Discussion? Anyone have any changes? All those in favor of approving January 7th, 2020 meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Max, I found the item I was looking for, and I hate to make you go back, but it's on the December 3rd meeting minutes. And it's on the second page, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth paragraph down. Dennis, you might remember. I don't remember John Blinn being at that meeting. I think his name might have been mistakes for somebody's, and I don't know who.
I had no idea who it was.
Okay, it's definitely not, okay. I know I saw the name Blinn in there somewhere, and I couldn't remember where it was. I don't remember who the conversation was with, but it wasn't Blinn.
I thought I heard him refer to as Dawn, and so I
Oh.
went looking to see if I could find it.
Was that the meeting you were at, John? Was that the meeting you were possibly at? No? I know you came to
It
one of
could
us.
have been. It could have been.
What if it was me? Well,
I think it was because that's the night
Yeah.
that Recreation came.
Yeah.
So that's the John you're looking for.
Yeah,
Okay.
John
John
Sherman.
Sherman.
John Sherman.
Sorry about that.
So
Thank
should
you.
we rescind the motion and do it over or amend it?
Just a motion to accept it as amended,
Okay.
I would say.
Is there a motion to accept the December 3rd, 2019 minutes as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second?
Sam seconds. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting December 3rd, 2019 meeting minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. All right. Thank you for finding that. So John Sherman is here for budget-related public comment, if you want to come up and speak.
thank you. Which microphone do I speak into? Does it make a
Good
difference?
question. We'd have no clue. Use both of
Yeah.
them.
I'll just try to speak loud.
Probably the stick one, I'm guessing.
That's what I'm thinking. Hi, my name is John Sherman. My residence is 3 Kimball Ave in Plaistow. I wanted to talk to the Budget Committee tonight about the deliberative session and other issues if you want. I heard a few concerns about what happened at deliberative session. I thought maybe there were some items I could help clear up or not. So I don't have a presentation prepared. I'm available for whatever questions you might have or concerns.
Okay, thank you for coming. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to talk about?
John, what capacity were you there as a,
I had no capacity. I was a public citizen.
okay.
Any other questions, concerns? Did you want to talk to us
Just,
about it?
well,
or-
just to give you a little background on what happened, deliberative session was on Saturday. On Thursday afternoon, Bill Coy and the town manager met. They'd had a series of meetings, and they basically agreed to what they were going to propose, which turned out to be a warrant article, a change to the budget, and one other thing. As they were putting that presentation together, they almost finished it, and the town manager, I think he might have had, anyway, he got a hold of me, called me, and said, could I come down? They were just wrapping up the recreation-related warrant articles, and he wanted me to have a look at them just for a historical purpose, not necessarily for content. They had worked out the content. One of the things that, well, there's a bunch of confusing things, but one of the things is that, and the town manager mentioned it, but I don't think it got enough publicity, is the reason he was able to present the warrant articles that talked about the recreation subjects was that he had just gotten the final estimation for what the cost was going to be. So this is on, this is on Thursday, 2 days before deliberative session. So he brought Bill in, and they went over the proposals, and they drafted warrant articles, and decided that Bill would present the requests at the deliberative session. I didn't have any role in that request specifically. I was just there as an observer, as a helper, as a wise old sage, I guess. So it was, they were drafted, they were presented. The folks involved in it, the Recreation Commission particularly, was really eager. They wanted to make sure something got on the warrant that would represent some money that we could spend to improve the rec fields. And so the final number was received on Thursday, 2 days before deliberative session. They were eager to launch a campaign to support the request, because it's been a request for multiple years. The Rec Commission did not submit a request the year before, and they were concerned that they were potentially going to miss out on a second one. But they were able to present it, and you can take over from there as far as what happened at the deliberative session. It was a long presentation. I would say longer than it had to be perhaps, but there were a lot of people there with a lot of different angles that they were involved in that request that really became 3 requests.
Bob Seeger?
Yeah, I was there as a citizen also. And I think that what struck me the most was you had 2 days. You got the information in 2 days, and in 2 days we managed to have a parade of crying mothers that their children can't use the field, one of which woman cried, her child cries, and they left town 6 months before, this evening, within a few months of this, these tears shed at the deliberative session. It just seemed that it was just a nonstop parade of people supporting this field, and it came out of nowhere.
No, it didn't come.
Well, the warrants that were brought forward were all nicely typed, all ready to go. I mean, this was a well-orchestrated, in 2 days, this was very well orchestrated. You had quite the crowd come forward. Nobody had any idea this was coming other than people in the know of the Recreation Committee. So people that were against it or were not for it or were blindsided by this as citizens, they could have never even got down here in time to have voted against this or this ever going on to a warrant or whatever it was. It was, to me, I felt that it was, I don't even have a word for it. It was, to me, I was just shocked that a board sat up there not having any idea what was going on. This was one after another, like I said, person paraded up there, and to me, it was ludicrous. To me, it was a travesty of what this board sat there for, and everybody in it, and it came across as almost, to me, that you and others were doing the bidding of certain people, of officials in the town that didn't want to do it. And that, to me, did not sit well, just as a citizen, not as a member of this committee, because I was not at the time, but as a citizen, I was very disturbed at what I saw.
Well, if we could go back and talk about pieces to that, you're saying it's well orchestrated. Honest to God, it was done in 2 days, other than information that had built up. I mean, the town manager worked with contractors to get estimated prices, and so from a schedule point of view, which is often a problem, we rely on outside vendors or outside contractors to supply us information, and we tell them when we want it, but we're still at their mercy as far as when they are going to deliver it. So that's why.
You had pictures, you had everything. I mean, this wasn't something that came.
That's the point. It wasn't something that just came up. If you look through the history of this project, there's all kinds of spreadsheets that support the project. There are financial information that the town manager put together. There was statewide information that he had to go gather. We're getting a state grant to cover a reasonably sizable portion of the request. I know you're using well orchestrated as a pejorative, but really, wouldn't you rather have it that way? I mean, people are coming there to support. We talk about we want people to come to town meeting and to support their interests, and so they did.
Okay, I don't want to do a whole back and forth.
No, that's fine. No, okay.
I'm going to let Sam talk and then.
And then Bob had a question.
And then Bob.
I have a question, John,
Yeah.
and you've been at this for a long time. Is it commonplace for town hall to prepare such a presentation like that for the rec commission?
Sure. I saw that in the minutes. Now, I don't know who you mean by town hall. Town hall?
Well, I don't know either who did it, but on the
Sure.
paperwork on that presentation, the town seal was on every corner of it. So somebody in this building prepared that for the rec commission.
Right. No, they didn't prepare for the rec committee. The rec committee didn't see it until deliberative session also.
So it was,
Wasn't like there was a whole group. Came from town hall because it was directed by the town manager, working with the recreation director. So where it says in the minutes that it was supported or executed by town hall, that's misleading. It was the town manager. Now, the presentation that talked about the, which one?
There were maps and plans and,
Yes, it had been worked on for a long time. This could have been, in a perfect world, this could have been ready 8 or 9 months earlier, but it wasn't, for various reasons that are gone. We had a change in leadership in the recreation department. We had to scuffle to cover for that position. Not me. But the rec committee did. Now, to be have a more thorough explanation, the town manager asked Dee Voss to help him, because Dee can do PowerPoint. And the three of us that were there, Bill Coy, Mark, and myself, not good at PowerPoint. Dee has just taken a class and wanted to be able to use it, and town manager said, perfect, we need a PowerPoint. So he directed Dee to do the PowerPoint. But Dee didn't make any decisions on what went into it. She was merely transcribing ideas and pieces of other documents that had been prepared as this project has gone along.
thank you.
Pardon me, with all due respect, I don't think the town manager emphasized that enough, that we were at the mercy of the contractor. And if we had only 2 days to do it, and if we didn't do it in those 2 days, it was going to be bye-bye. You wouldn't be able to get it done. Plus, if you remember, the discussion is the execution's going to have to wait a year anyways, right? They won't be able to use the field this coming year. If you hadn't processed that request in 2 days, it really would have been 2 more years before the fields would have been available.
I have 2 points.
Sure.
The first one is, we were talking about a warrant, and it wasn't. It was an amendment to our budget. This was not being proposed as a warrant, but an amendment to our budget. Just like to clarify that.
I think, that's right? I was thinking there were 3 parts to the request. I don't have it in front of me. Did that all get put in the operating budget?
Yes,
3 parts,
that's what
drainage.
that proposal was.
I apologize for being
Okay.
wrong. I know, I guess I was saying it the way I would have preferred that it be done.
Us too.
It's confusing when it comes to the
Right.
recreation stuff, right, Bob? Because you've got the town, you've got the state, and getting things done can be confusing. I would have preferred that it be split up into at least 2 warrant articles, but it didn't. It only went as one.
Okay. The other point I'd like to make,
And you're right, that was done. Can't take it back. I would have preferred it be a different way, but I got outvoted.
The other point I'd like to make is that previous years during budget process for the Budget Committee, the Rec Department has come in and explained what they would like to do and kind of sell us on a program. It was done the year before when all of the work was done with the drainage on the sides and all of that, the rain gutters on the pavilion and all of that was all explained to us. And that's how it's been done previously in the 5 years that I've been on this Budget Committee.
And of course, that's the way it should be.
Right. This year, or for leading up to deliberative session, nothing was mentioned about any of this to the Budget Committee. It was all new to us. Yes, we knew that they were talking about doing the walkways around the mountain and that kind of thing.
That's gonna
And
be
they were
great when
talking
that's done, by
about
the way.
doing the, eventually doing another field, possibly doing another field, but it was always kind of out in the future. It wasn't really explained that they were trying to get this done, that there was even an RFP out to get bids for this job. So this is what caught us as a Budget Committee off guard. And this was just one of 5 amendments to our budget last year. And we sit here thinking, well, is this going to happen again this year? Are we going to go to deliberative session with our budget and come to find out town hall or whoever is plotting to add to our budget with things that were never discussed? That's the point I'd like to make. That's why it really rubbed us the wrong way. We were all there till well after lunch. Some of us had personal things that we were planning on attending. We didn't expect to be all day. I won't be caught off guard like that again. I'll come prepared to spend the day, but it was a rough day
It
for the
was.
Budget Committee. And
It
he
was.
felt it, Robert felt it as a resident.
Okay, I don't want this to take over the meeting.
That's fine.
Can I
I had
just,
something, and do you,
If he wants to
can I just respond?
Yes.
I agree with you. Those things shouldn't have been at the last minute, but I'm the wrong guy to talk to.
Okay.
I have no authority. This sounds like a breakdown in the relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee. You didn't get information you need. You didn't even get information about there's a project out there that might be coming. I don't know. I don't mean this as a wise guy. I don't know what your process is for finding new warrant articles. I thought it was you went into the CIP and looked for projects that had a future date of in the near future, and those would probably get submitted. I don't think that was done. Summarizing, I agree with your point, but your point is with the selectmen and the Budget Committee.
okay.
Did Dennis have
Yeah,
a hand up
Dennis
before me?
hasn't spoken yet.
I was going to bring this up last time, and it's not sour grapes or anything, but this isn't, this year, what we went through with the deliberative session, it also happened the year before. There were certain members on this Budget Committee that didn't know some things were being proposed to cut the budget. So it's been 2 years in a row where I've sat there and there's been surprises at the deliberative session. And, you know, it's just not the way it should work. We should know what's going to happen going in as members of the Budget Committee, working together with the Board of Selectmen, with the town manager, with the finance director. So I'm just hopeful this year we can move forward and just all be on the same page and work together.
I know Sam had something to say, and then I'd like to.
And off the rec, not on the rec plan, on the other, 2 of the other amendments, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you made both of them to the highway department, one to the salt line and one to the paving line. Those were just of your, something you felt needed to be done?
Town manager asked me to do it.
Okay, thanks.
And I don't want to make it sound like conspiracy. He had just
don't have to, that's-
he had just done something for me that was a favor, and I felt I had to pay him back, and even though it was one day before deliberative session, it happened to be something that I supported, so I was willing to make I didn't know what the selectmen's plan were as far as presenting warrant articles. You know, in the past, selectmen have presented warrant articles.
That wasn't a warrant article, it was an addition.
I
to the budget.
understand,
Okay.
but even for the other two, right, wasn't there one that Greg proposed and one that John Blinn proposed?
Correct, yeah.
I don't know where those came from. I know you guys felt surprised. I think John Blinn felt surprised that he was doing that presentation.
Yeah, we were
So
very
I had a day's notice. I don't know how much notice John had, but I did it. I did it because I thought I could do a good job presenting it, and I thought it was a good idea.
That's fine, thank you.
Julian,
Julian had a
and then-
question.
Yeah, I agree with some of these things. What we have to remember here is whether you're Budget Committee, Board of Selectmen, Town Hall employees, citizens, we're all part of the same family, the same team, and we have to communicate, and we have to work together, whether we agree with every little bit or not, because I was in the dark as well last thing. I didn't know that was coming. I remember John Blinn being asked to present that little piece, so I saw him being asked. So it was like, I don't know where it all came from. I'm not pointing any fingers because I don't know all the facts. I only saw what was there. I was caught by surprise as well. So it's not, the Board of Selectmen did not all know that was happening either. So I don't know where it all came from. I wish we had been explained beforehand what was going to happen. It would have come across better. We could have answered questions better. Because, as you've been a selectman, John, something happens, everyone thinks you're going to have the answers when they ask you, right? And in this case, I didn't have the answers. And if you were there, you probably wouldn't have had it either, had you been in some of our shoes. So I think communication is important. If you have a little thing, you have a plan coming up, please share it with somebody, because these things don't come across looking well, even if they had good intention.
And
Couple
Yeah.
of points. I know you want to, but if
Yeah,
I
I
could,
really
a
need to
couple of
move on.
points. Again, I'm not sure how the selectmen were going to divvy up warrant articles, so,
Yeah,
and, yeah, you folks should know about the warrant articles, of course. And it's really upsetting to me, because I take and have taken great pride in how well this town plans,
yes.
right? We know what we're going to do in a couple of years.
But if there was going to be a presentation
Right.
like that, which was obviously a big thing, we should have known something. And I'm not taking anything against you, John. You did a good job.
I've asked people, is there a plan to present the CIP? I don't know. But that needs to happen.
Yep.
So this kind of thing doesn't happen, right? I mean,
Yep.
this, with all due respect, this is an easy one, right? I mean, I'm biased toward it, I'll admit that.
Yep.
But we know what we need to do. We need to do it. There is no alternative. If you don't fix that drainage, it should have been not a problem from years ago, but it's here, so we have to deal with it.
I want to thank you for coming and being open to our questions, and I just wanted to add that we were more concerned about not the warrant articles or a citizen's petition. We have no control over that because we get the warrant articles from the BOS and we vote on them. We were more concerned about all the hard work that we did as a committee to make prudent cuts to the budget that we felt would help ease the burden of the taxpayer. And our town manager undermined us by asking a private citizen to present an
Additions.
amendment to the budget that we cut. I mean, if you came up and that was your prerogative, you have that right as a citizen, but for the town manager that we employ to do something like that, it's disgraceful.
Silly me, I made an assumption, because I had some health issues right at that time, and I made the assumption that the town manager had cleared this with the Board of Selectmen. In my mind, I envisioned that the Board of Selectmen had given him a directive of get these 5 warrant articles, or whatever the right
Amendment.
number is, get them out there. And maybe he waited till the last minute. I'm making this stuff up. I'm just trying to think what
Well,
went
you,
through.
you've been a Board of Selectmen for several years, and you've run the town very well. How would you feel as a Board of Selectmen being asked by the town manager to add back everything the Budget Committee cut? Doesn't the Board of Selectmen hand their budget over to the Budget Committee, and it's our job to present a budget to the people?
Yes?
So if the board...
But that doesn't mean that's the final budget, by the way. I've got one
Well,
more point to
correct,
make.
I know that it's not, but our budget shouldn't be undermined. We should have a chance to present that to the people, and then it can change at deliberative. But at whose request? The town managers? That's all I want to make, that point. And I think,
And by the way, what was done was perfectly legal.
yep.
I don't want people, I guess nobody's listening, but I
I
don't
guess
want people
the
to think
question
it
is
wasn't.
appropriateness versus
It-
whether or not something's legal.
Yeah, it was legal, it was done. It's part of the process that while the Budget Committee prepares the budget that is presented to the deliberative session, that does not in fact make it the final budget, and amendments can be made to the budget at deliberative session. So I was on the Budget Committee 27 years, so I'm a little sensitive to the process and what you folks go through. And, yeah, I would have been upset if that had happened. I think I would have proposed, I would have stood up and exclaimed loudly that we shouldn't be doing this, that damn it. We have a process for planning these kinds of things, and it doesn't need to be done at the last minute. So if the decision was, are you going to do it at the last minute or not do it at all, we got to fix that drainage and the other issues that go along with it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks for coming in, John.
Thank you,
Glad
John.
to.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So I hope everybody had a chance to review the budget that we received. I'd like to start of looking at the comparative sheet, and hopefully people took notes or wrote things down that they had any questions or concerns.
Just a quick question. So I picked stuff up earlier, but in the packet, there was also,
Yeah, I gave you
Stuff- yeah.
one with the paper clip.
yeah, did anything change?
Yes.
That, yeah.
So
the
we're
colored-
going-
The colored sheets
Okay,
are the ones that changed.
okay, thank you.
So I'd like to just have a general discussion about what we were presented with and what the BOS approved compared to last year's budget. We can see that it went up about $200,000. I was kind of hoping for a level-funded budget because we're in a really horrible time right now. A lot of people are out of work. I don't think we should be spending a ton of money, but that's just my perspective.
I feel the same way, and I think that I can't think of a good excuse outside of things that are out of control, insurance, workman's comp type of things, that this shouldn't be a level funded or a cut. I can find holes through this whole thing. It didn't take me more than an hour to get through all of it and find holes on holes in it. So I think that it's a line-by-line situation, and I think we all need to take a good hard look at it. I go from there.
When you went through the budget, did you see anything that stared at you in the face that you saw?
Oh, several things. I
Okay.
tell you, I think that I look at items, let's say for recreation, okay? There's a good chance this year recreation will be a very minimal thing. We don't anticipate everybody having any kind of inoculation until early spring, maybe early summer. That's going to preclude a lot of things happening in recreation that we would normally have to fund. The building office, used to be on the third floor here, is now over in a building that should be mothballed or sold. There's no reason, we voted in this town to put the building inspector, the plumber inspector, and the electrical inspector in the police department, the new building. It was on the plans. They were to have offices there. Not to put them in a building that was abandoned from the court. Now that we have to heat, cool, maintain, that doesn't make any sense. If we're gonna do anything, leave them back up in this building. So those are just a couple of things off the top of my head, but there was just, I have dozens of those type of things that I'll be happy to share with the board as we're going along.
That's great. Anybody else have?
Yeah,
Yeah, Julian, and then we'll go around.
well, yeah, I do recall conversations, now that you bring it up, that, and I know a lot of other towns do it, they consider let's say, building inspector and the fire department chief, they work together for
That's right.
inspecting buildings. And a lot of times, they put them in the same building, and that discussion, I think it came up when we were building the safety complex, wasn't it?
When we were building the safety complex.
You have a point there, I forgot all about that.
Right, there
Yeah.
was, the plans called out for them to be in that building.
Yeah.
And to take them out of this building.
But I think I'll go in the defense of the town manager slightly. There was no plan to use that building, the old courthouse,
Yep,
as it's being used right now. That became as a result of the COVID. And I think they didn't want to put people in and out of the fire department, because if they got sick, where's our emergency response?
and I can buy into that.
I
but
can
if
see this
that-
being temporary, it might not be permanent, I don't know.
But if that was the case, there's an elevator here, straight to his office.
Yep.
I mean, people come in the front door to go into the town clerk. They could go into the front door and go up to the office and be isolated there very well. So to take a building that is approximately 4,000 square feet and take and heat and cool it and maintain it.
Yeah, I
What is
see
it?
your-
I'm sorry.
3 people?
Yeah, exactly.
I see your point very well, and I think when it was here in this building, it worked well, it served the community
Absolutely.
well. So I'd have to agree with you in a lot of that. Yeah, you're right, a whole building just to use a part of it. I
Right.
don't know what's gonna happen in the future, and I guess it's a good question to ask. What are the plans going down the road once this COVID crisis subsides or becomes reduced? But I agree with you as far as that point goes.
Thank you.
So a couple things that jumped out at me. Obviously, I'll need more of an explanation around the fire department and, that huge increase there. I know we had a presentation last year. It is a new fire chief, so I'd like to, just see the thoughts there. Personnel, there are some people that have left that had many years in this town. The building inspector recently left. There's been some other people that have left, so I would have expected to see maybe a decrease there with, new people coming in and people that have been around for quite a while leaving. That was another area that jumped out at me.
Paul, did you have your hand up? You had your hand up before?
Yes. A little more about, when we were talking about the annex, is what they're calling it, I guess. My only concern is, it's been like anything else in this town. Once they're in, not much is done. Everybody's comfortable. We've spent money to switch everything over to that building, okay? So that's my only concern, is that they're not gonna be in a big hurry to find out what to do with this building. And I agree. I remember the plans, I remember going over the plans, I remember that the fire department, or the safety complex, was gonna be where it was. Knowing the safety complex, there are many doors, entrances to that, especially out the back. So this of not going through the front door or whatever to the fire department, I understand all that. It's the same as going into this annex, okay? I agree, there's 3 people to take them from the upstairs, move everything that was upstairs over to this other building. The expenditure for that, I don't even know where that came from, okay? We're now paying to move that over, move everything over, put them in, even if it's for a short period of time, we're now talking the expense to move them back out of there and to uninstall everything that we've installed over there to make them comfortable. So this is a line item, this, you know, I'm estimating, or I'm guessing that this is part of what the building, why the general government buildings went up a considerable amount. Would that help explain why we're seeing a, you know, $50,000 increase? Because we're now moving people around and spreading out? Would that be, that would be a good question.
I think that's a question you should ask the town manager when that time comes, because it is a good question.
Sam had a question, or?
I'd like to approach the $199,494 elephant in the room. Several years ago, one of my first few years in the Budget Committee, probably 3 years ago, a similar addition was proposed by the past fire chief to change the structure of the fire department. And it was met with quite a bit of animosity on both sides. And in the end, it was decided that it should go, and it was told by, I could have asked John Sherman was here, but it's current history and policy, not policy, I should say, but I guess,
Procedure.
yeah, old procedure of the town, when a structure is changed or a position added, it's done by warrant, especially when it's a $200,000 position. So I think we should think about whether or not that should be put in the budget. It was decided last time that it went on a warrant, and personally, I feel this time it should go on a warrant as well. That's just my personal opinion, but I think that's something we should probably think about fairly quickly, and I have heard it mentioned at the Board of Selectmen's meetings that they are also of the, well, I should say, I don't know which way they're leaning, but they're waiting for our default, I guess, to see which way that goes, but I don't think that should be a budget item. I think that should be a decision of the town, whether or not they want to fund 2 more overnight firefighters and change the structure of the fire department from now forever. It's not just something, it's not a one-time expenditure or a change in the current policy. It's a change going on forever.
I did get an email from Chief Knutson, and he's willing to come in and talk to us about it. So I can, when we go over the schedule, we can discuss when to have him in.
Yeah, I want explanation around that, definitely.
Yeah.
Dennis, did you happen to watch the chief's?
No.
He spoke for over an hour.
Wow.
So you may want to think twice about having him come in again. I'm not going to tell you I won't let him in or don't want him to.
Yeah.
But I think if you have the time to Vimeo it, make a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and
Yep.
it's a long, long
I
presentation.
do have the PDF that he provided as
It's
well.
a really excellent, I'm not berating it at all. It's
Yeah.
an unbelievable presentation.
Yeah.
It's an excellent presentation. But it was very long and very detailed.
Okay.
Maybe it would be helpful, send out the PDF. We could review it, have them come in here, and then
Just hit the highlights.
hit the highlights, and we can ask the questions we
Yeah.
have.
That's a good idea.
Julian has his hand up.
Julian?
When is approximately our next meeting going to be here?
Well, we're going to go over the schedule
Okay,
on the agenda, but it will be next week.
Next week, all right. I just recommend that if you're going to make a decision that you would like it to be a warrant article, that it be done early on, because we have to make the warrant articles.
Well, do we want to address this now as far as the warrant article and take a?
Around the table.
I would, well, personally, I'd like to see that presentation, have him come in and ask the questions, and then,
Were you on the board when they wanted to add the EMT position that year?
yeah, so I was gonna say with Sam, so what ended up happening, actually, that was a warrant article, and I had spoken and said I thought it should be a warrant article, but then at the time, somebody had done some research, and it was more 50-50 on whether it was a warrant article or sometimes it was in the budget. So I always was under the impression, like you said, Sam, that it was always a warrant article, but then at the time, there was some research done, and they came back to us after looking at various warrant articles throughout the years. So it kind of was back and forth on whether or not it should be a warrant article or not. But I think I'm
Bob,
in
and
line
then-
with you, Sam. I think I've always said I would prefer to see it as a warrant article.
Bob and then Julian.
When we ended up putting that EMT firefighter on a warrant rather than the budget,
Yeah.
it was one person. This proposal, I'm not sure how many people we're talking, but we're talking about nighttime coverage between 6 AM and 6 PM, 6 PM to 6 AM. So we're talking 12 hours, 7 days. I'm not sure how many people we're talking here. There's no question in my mind that this has got to be a warrant article and be the decision of the residents of Plaistow, the taxpayers.
Julian, did you?
I just want to get clear, Rob, there's no rule or regulation that says it has to go to warrant article, but it's always been the tradition of the town for a large expenditure or increase of employees to go to warrant article, but it doesn't have to be.
That's the word I was
Yeah,
looking for,
it's
tradition.
been the tradition, and sometimes traditions are good, because then the people get, if you do things without the people's permission, so to speak, there's always gonna be somebody, or disgruntled people in the town that say, well, we didn't get a chance to vote on it. Well, I think if it's a public safety thing, most people vote for it, but it's good to give them the choice. And of course, that's just my opinion, maybe not the rest of the Board of Selectmen. It's always been a good thing to give them a choice.
Well, we could.
Yeah,
Go around the table, get a
Yeah, we could get a
consensus.
consensus, and then I can still have him come in to explain what the position is for, but I'm leaning towards it should be the voters to decide, and it just gives them another opportunity to explain why we need it. Lori?
I think we should suggest or submit him to you questions, so he'll be prepared to answer our questions when he comes in.
Right, but should we vote on whether or not there should be a warrant article to begin with, and he can still come in and
Yeah,
answer our questions?
after his presentation.
Oh, you don't want to vote now if it should be a warrant article?
Yeah, I agree with you, Laurie. I'd
I'd
just
rather
like to see
wait.
the presentation.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it has to happen right away.
Bob?
Also, in preparation for that, it's on Vimeo. It was, I don't have the date, but I could get it for you, so you could watch the presentation that the chief gave on Vimeo.
Yeah.
Like Sam said, it was very long and very detailed, and not much of it really explained this $199,000.
Right.
It was more of a discussion about training and the danger of railroad cars, trains coming through town, and if there's an accident, our town isn't prepared to react to those things, and it went on and on. It
Okay,
was
so
very detailed.
why don't what we do is I'm going to email him tomorrow morning and ask if he can come to our meeting next week. I will send out the PDF, and if people could watch the presentation.
Yep.
That way, when he comes here, it's more specific, it doesn't have to go on about the whole state of affairs.
Right.
Because like Bob said, it wasn't, not, like I said, not a lot of it went into detail about this edition. It was more about department deficiencies was the meat of the discussion, I believe.
Is that on video?
Yes,
Vimeo,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
It
Board
was
of
a
Selectmen meeting.
from, if you're getting the
I don't
date,
know.
I don't know, it was a few
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Julian?
Yes, I'll say this increase is not just about hiring new people. Some of it's just more hours for some people. It may not necessarily be more people because it's additional hours of coverage. There may be some additional people because obviously someone can't work 24 hours. And like you said, you had just mentioned, it was an entire summary of the entire operation of our fire, EMT services, et cetera. So it wasn't just about one thing, it was a lot of things. So I guess without watching that video and looking at this sheet, you don't have a clue what it's really trying to tell you. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Julian, you might know this, at the current point, there is 2 people in there overnight, 2 firefighters sleeping there every night overnight. Is that being paid for from grants, COVID grants from the state, or, and then that is gonna expire, and he wants to keep it with this new proposal? as far as you know? Because I know there is overnight coverage now in the station.
Yeah, but it's not just, those people couldn't respond on their own without other people coming in. You'd have to listen to the whole presentation. It's not a black and white thing.
Okay.
You'd have to see the presentation.
Bob, did you have something to add?
Yes, well, I had a question. So when we were saying, so you were saying that the deficiencies and so on and so forth, so they actually spent 67, just a little over 67,000 for this year. And they're requesting 312. So I'm
It's
not
more-
quite sure how many deficiencies we have in town.
And it makes it more complicated because some of the funds that were in the current expenditures are being reimbursed through the various grants because of the COVID, so, and which makes it even more confusing. How much of it that we spent extra this year really isn't coming out of taxpayer money, it's coming out of money coming in. And you're gonna see that with the police department too. So this year's, when you get the police and fire, it's a little bit tricky. Because there's funds coming from different directions because of the crisis. And so you don't know how much this is going to carry forth into the following years. So current expenditures aren't necessarily taxpayer expenditures this year. So,
Dennis?
Well, that's not entirely true, okay? Because we don't know how much we're going to be reimbursed from the state or the federal government.
some of it's already happened. We've already got reimbursements.
Right, but as far as what's happening now,
Yeah.
okay, it's not guaranteed that we're gonna get it all back. And if we don't, then we've incurred an expense that, again, we have to try to take out of our pocket. So
But
I think it's something, I think every one of these lines has to take that into account. You know, we may have less money coming in from the state and the federal government this year, so that, as a result, we may be in the land of hurt than in good times, that's for sure.
Dennis?
I was going to say along that line with the COVID grants, and I'm not sure if some of that money might have been used for the annex, but once that's done, we get the grant money, then we're stuck paying afterwards. So that's something else we need to consider. It's great getting the money, but then you put yourself into a situation where then you need to fund.
Keep funding it.
Yeah, so, not to speak out of turn.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
According to the town manager, during the 9/28 Board of Selectmen meeting, he anticipated that there was going to be $180,000 in reimbursements from the CARES Act. And he anticipated a $200,000 drop in revenue. So it kind of is a wash. So based on this year's budget, the CARES Act is pretty much wiping out what was anticipated as being lost revenue.
And forgive
to
me
share
for
that.
being skeptical, okay? What's anticipated and what's in my hand is two different things. If he comes here and he shows me something that says, this is a guaranteed deal, then I feel a whole hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is just the budget that we're talking about.
Right.
The scary part is that there was a survey that was done by municipalities and sent it into the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And not all towns responded, but there were a good number that did. And out of those that did respond, 80% of them are very concerned about the lost revenue from property taxes, both residential and commercial, starting December. There wasn't much effect, I think it was 1/4% for the first half of the year, but it's expected to really hit in December.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we have to take into consideration in looking at this budget. Revenue loss. Revenue loss from taxes, which is our biggest income. And the other revenue loss that we know we've already lost is revenue from the courthouse. That's gone.
Right.
So-
I will add too, I had asked
Okay.
the finance director, Greg Colby, about lost revenues, and he also said that building inspection was down too, and we lost a great deal too because we had Exeter Medical, and now they're switching to nonprofit, so we don't have that money either.
Sure.
So he's going to present something more formally, I'm sure, but that's also
On revenue?
to take in, yeah.
Good,
that's
thank
also
you.
something to-
Good.
Yeah, and along those same lines, the highway block grant,
I was just going to say
where we
that.
get our money, comes from road tolls,
Right.
gasoline, hotels, food,
Hotels,
you know.
all that,
And-
exactly,
That
that's
was-
what I was thinking.
That made me
Yep.
wonder also, there was, they're starting to pave now. So I thought that was kind of strange, especially if we're not going to be getting
Well,
in.
they're using the stuff we already budgeted for
Right.
last year. Yeah.
Did you have something to add too?
Well, I had a question. I'm seeing that a lot of what's requested, well, not a lot, I'm just saying that, I noticed that some of these were requested, the town manager recommended, and then the Board of Selectmen increased it. Like the legal, I see jumped up from 65 to 81. The Board of Selectmen added onto
16.
that, approved a higher budget than what was requested and recommended.
Same thing happened last year, almost right down the line.
Why?
So I think how we should move forward is you weren't on the board last year, but I would get questions from the committee members, and then I would send them to the town manager, who got answers regardless of what department they were for. I think when we go over the schedule part of the agenda, I want to map out which budgets we'll definitely be taking a closer look at, so you can get your questions together for those meetings. That's how I'd like it to play out.
Is it your intention to still have every department come in and present their budget?
Only the ones that we need to come in.
Okay.
I mean, last year we did fire, police, rec, and then the town manager was here to facilitate questions as far as executive and personnel. But there
Okay.
are a lot of smaller budgets that we don't need to have people come in for.
I agree.
Also, a lot that have decreased too. There's no sense in bringing them in if their level are decreased. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
if we could focus on the ones that are really in the yellow and blue, or that have been added onto, I think that would make the process go a little smoother also.
Yep. Bob, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to mention to Darrell that when he was a selectman, and also when I first became a member of the Budget Committee, all department heads came in and presented their budgets to first the selectmen, and then a week later to the Budget Committee. So
Right.
we were kind of piggybacking with them. Now, none of that happens. It's presented by the finance director and the town manager, the total budget. It's given to the Board of Selectmen first. They make their review of it, make the adjustments, and pass it on to us. And this is where we are. So we don't have time anymore, because we used to start in September to
Right.
review budgets. Now it's already the middle of November.
True.
So it's literally impossible to have everybody come in.
Bad.
At the highlights.
The Board of Selectmen received the budget on October 26th, and I received it. Sent it out to everybody via email.
And that's too bad.
And with that being said, we could have met on the following Tuesday, but that was voting, and I didn't think that that was feasible for people to get here in the amount of time. So, I mean, it is what it is. Our hands are kind of tied until we get the budget. We don't know what we're working with
Well,
until.
I think that's a request that we make this point going forward. You know, the budget was never, ever this late getting into the Budget Committee's hands.
Never.
And that's on the Board of Selectmen. And I feel as though, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I think that the Board of Selectmen should do a better job getting the budget to the Budget Committee earlier. And I really don't accept the excuse, well, it's more complicated, there's more to it. You know something? You start your process earlier, you get it earlier, because it's so easy to miss things that you wouldn't normally miss if you can take the time to re-examine it and go over it and talk about it. We're running out of time really quick.
Yeah,
Julian?
I think we got the budget before October 26th.
Nope.
Our entire budget, or is that when you got it?
You guys, what finished?
We did it in 2 different weeks. We
You
had
finished-
2 different weeks.
You finished going over the budget on October 26th. Our
But
first meeting.
The first half could have been reviewed.
Well, our first meeting as a budget committee, we decided that we were waiting until the BOS gave us their budget, because why are we going back and forth with, we're gonna make this change, and then the Board of Selectmen made this change, and then we have to go back and make this change. It just, that's not feasible. We needed to get the final BOS
We did
budget.
that
Well, that was your
before, Julie.
decision,
We
but
ended
you
up
could have
with-
got a couple-week head start on the
Ended up
first
with
half.
5 of these the last time we did that. And everyone was scrambling on what date, which copy are you looking at? We tried to do workshops, and every line,
Right.
half of it changed every week. It was ridiculous.
Well, it's a two-way street.
Well, I would only ask is that, obviously, this year it's late, okay, to start over again. That maybe next year, you could go back to the town manager and the other board members and talk about getting the budget to us earlier.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
I mean, you guys went to like bi-monthly meetings too, which, I mean, we're a town of over 7,000 people. I think we have more things to discuss than every other week.
Well, even bi-weekly, if we have more to do, we should just do a longer meeting, that's all. It's simple. But that wasn't my call.
Well, at least you can convey our wishes to the board. Okay, so I'd like to, I think Mr. Zoukas's suggestion of looking at the ones that, you know, if they decreased or neutral, do we really want to be digging any deeper? I think that the first meeting, 11/17, our next week's meeting, we can have the fire department come in, and maybe if you give me questions on, let's see, what other budget?
We could do the fire department, that's gonna take a while. Take some of these level-funded budgets, some of the easier ones, and maybe whip out like 4 of them after that. You know, that are gonna be quick.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like what ones are gonna have questions.
Right.
So I guess next week we'll focus on fire department and going over the neutral ones, and we'll get those out of the way. That's a good idea.
I think you have an idea of, you know, what we want to come in.
Yep.
You know, so I think, you know, as a consensus, I think if we just, you have an idea what we want.
Yep.
Put the schedule together and we go from there.
Okay. Bob?
We've also gotten away from anticipated revenue being posted on the budget form itself. And this year, it's more important than ever before because of COVID. So what scares me about this budget is the fact that we're not really talking about what the revenue losses actually are. Tax revenue, we get all of these other revenue sources that are being affected. This is going to affect our tax rate, it's going to affect our budget. It's scary. Last year, we had the largest residential tax increase in Plaistow history. And it was because of a reevaluation in which commercial properties, their bills decreased by $1,200,000, $1.2 million. We had to make that up. That's why we had such a large tax increase in our residential taxes. That, on top of that, we got another evaluation this year. We don't know what that's going to be. Between the loss of revenue and another reevaluation, it is scary for Plaistow citizens right now, me included.
Yep.
Yeah, you have a question?
One of the other things that's also scary is when I see for solid waste collection, it's still an estimate. I think when we get down to the budget, we ought to at least have a good idea of what that big number is going to be.
Yeah. Well, that's still up in the air, I'm sure, too.
It's still up in the
because-
air, but before we really work on it, we need it.
It's on the agenda next week for the Board of Selectmen to
Yeah.
at least be discussing, right?
Yes, it is.
And did you have something to add, too, before? You had your hand up before.
Yeah, I have requested not more than 1 year to be able to, at least in the notes here, tell us what the revenues are. Because you know, when you're budgeting anything, you want to know what the pluses and minuses are.
Right.
And if we are going to have someone say our revenues are going to be down, it'd be nice to know where are those revenues down? Because it also affects the bottom line of how much you expend in that department. Maybe less revenues could mean a little bit less expenses. An example, building department. You have revenue coming in, they pay for inspections of their plumbing or whatever, electrical that they did. But then again, money goes out to pay for, money comes in, but then money goes out to pay for the actual inspector. Because they're not actually usually a town employee, they're a contractor, like the electrical inspector, the plumbing inspector. So when one thing goes down, maybe the other one goes down with it, but we don't know if we don't see those kind of numbers.
Do you have access to that? Have you received that material?
I have not received that material, but I've gone through the process. I've asked questions, and I've talked to the building inspector before. And these are questions that have come up in past Board of Selectmen meetings, maybe a few years back, many years back. And I've gone through the inspection process to do home improvements, so I know how it works. You pay the
But is
town, and the
there,
town
is there
pays the
something
contractors, et
specific
cetera.
to ask
Huh?
is there something specific to ask the finance director for? Because I would like to receive that revenue report.
Well, there's even revenue from the tax collector, because the tax collector collects revenue
Right, but
via
is there
card
something
taxes.
he can just, like, hit print and send it? I mean,
You'd have to ask
exactly.
the director.
I
there is-
guess I just don't know what it's called, and if
I
I don't
don't
have a
either.
specific name
Well-
for it, I have a hard time getting it.
It's not a line item on our budget sheets.
Right,
That's why we don't see it,
but
because
it's
of the way
probably
budgeting
a separate
works. Yeah.
report that I can ask for, but I don't know
Because
what I'm,
the town clerk is actually a revenue generator, and so is the building department.
okay.
I believe it's a revenue report as the expense report.
For all
It
departments,
probably comes out of BMSI.
Under
Okay.
the explanation before it passed.
I will try to get that, because I think that would be particularly helpful in
Yeah.
budgeting.
Because when you look at certain departments, it says, look, we're spending all this money, but you're not looking at how much money's coming in.
Right.
So it's not really an expenditure, it's actually, you might say, a profit center for the town. The money that's spent, the money that comes in is a lot more than you're spending.
Well, it's like the
Yeah,
block
it's like a
grant,
business, yeah.
it was on here for an amount, and we thought we could just cut it out because it's a grant, but they don't show it as, we don't see the revenue side of it, so it doesn't, we don't know it washes each other out.
And there's a lot of questions for the finance director. He's gonna have all those numbers, so at some point, you're gonna have him come in.
Yeah, Dennis?
What used to, in years past, and Sam, you probably, we would have that under the explanation column or the description
believe you're right,
column.
yeah.
It would be, you know, what we
In the
had
description.
coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the description, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I asked for in
Offsetting
the
revenues.
past.
Offset,
Offsetting
exactly.
revenue, so. we're-
I wanted to ask Julian a question. I don't know if he'll answer it. Are the Board of Selectmen going to use the 2019 assessments to set the tax rate?
I'll know the final answer next meeting. There are just some things that are happening in progress right now. I can't talk about all of them.
I understand.
And we have to know when the final decisions are made, then we can publicize it, I guess. But I'm not really free to answer it in its entirety, so it's best I don't answer it at all at this
Okay,
point.
that's fine.
But yes, that's a possibility.
Okay. All right,
Can I just follow up on that? If that is the case, then most likely the tax rate will go up. And the residents will still take on the burden again.
Do you agree with that?
Well, you'd have to base that upon what the new values were coming out to be that weren't completed. It
But if
may
you-
not have been turning out that way.
But if
So-
you have to use
No,
the 2019 assessments,
Yeah, but I'm saying they did some assessments for the new, but we just can't, we may not be able to use them because they weren't finished. It may have been coming out the other way around. So, again, I can't fully answer that question
Okay.
because
Well,
when
we'll
it was
wait till next
spoken
week.
about.
So we should know next week is what you said.
Only thing you can look at is what was discussed publicly in the Board of Selectmen meeting last night.
right?
so we'll move on to the schedule. So the tentative schedule that I have, our next meeting's 11/17. 11/24 is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I know traditionally we don't meet that week. I'll leave it up to get a consensus of the board if people are traveling or,
I don't think anybody's traveling this year, so.
I mean, I don't know if we're gonna need that meeting.
I think we're late. I think we should schedule it, and, I mean,
Schedule it a day
yeah,
before or something
yeah.
like that?
We,
I wanna get the schedule to town hall, but I can always cancel it.
yeah, schedule it, and,
Yeah, it's probably
yeah.
better to schedule.
I mean,
and
does
cancel.
anybody have a conflict with that day?
Is anyone traveling to family or?
I'm traveling that day, and if we can do it, if we can get a schedule from the town hall, what's going on, and maybe do it on the 23rd, I don't know if that helps anybody, but that would be a Tuesday before.
Well, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving is the 24th,
Oh, 24,
and then the 23rd would be the BOS meeting.
okay, yeah, no, I'm not traveling then,
Okay.
I'm fine.
All right, so, Julian?
I think it should also be considered that I don't think any of this committee should go and take your vacations and things, but you can do remote meetings now. We have the software, we have everything. You can sit in the comfort and have a beer with it if you want. I mean, or your wine.
No, you don't want to get me drunk on this thing.
Or you could be in Barbados or Bermuda, and you could take a little time out, get on your computer and be in a meeting, and
So that's an
and you get the
option,
best of both worlds.
that's an option too, if
Yeah.
we have to be remote.
That's
Bob?
not an option for somebody that has a 12-year-old computer.
Right.
Well, you're true.
Is the Board of Selectmen meeting that Monday?
Are you meeting that Monday, I assume?
We're meeting next Monday.
11/23? Are you meeting the Monday?
I don't
after?
have my schedule with
Okay.
me that far ahead.
Okay. So 11/17, 11/24, 12/1, 12/8.
Jay just said no.
Okay.
He's looking it up.
12/8, 12/15, the Tuesday before Christmas. I can schedule all of these and then cancel them, I think, so.
Good
12
idea. Yeah, I would.
12/22, 12/29, and 1/5, and then 1/12 is the public hearing on the budget. So that's our schedule. And I'll work on grouping different budgets together on the days that we're meeting. So fire department, I will try to get in for 11/17. And then if you could also supply any questions on personnel, executive, and other government buildings, I think that would give us enough material to discuss.
Well, I think the budget's big enough that there's enough material to discuss whether you have questions or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I have answers when we meet, so if someone looked at the budget and said, oh, I have a question about this, can you get this for the next meeting?
Yeah.
So when's our last budget meeting?
January 12th is public hearing, and we normally don't have to meet after that, but if we have to revote warrant articles,
Right,
I might have to call a separate meeting.
okay.
Julian?
And I also, some of the presentations by different departments are not only beneficial for this committee to be cutting or adding or whatever, some of these presentations are the community's only way to find out how their money's being spent, and those presentations are their only way to really find out. So there's a benefit to having a presentation other than the people in the room. And part of, being part of public transparency, it's nice for the people to understand, when they understand how their money's being spent, and if it's being spent well, they can feel better about it, even though, yeah, it still comes out of their pocketbook. But to know why is a big difference for people than just say, this is the bill, this is how much it costs. So there is a benefit to a presentation, as long as it's not too excessively long, so that the people can understand how their taxes are being spent. So I just wanted to make that point.
I agree with you, Julian. Just what I was trying to say earlier is I don't think there's any reason to repeat them like we used to in the past.
Yeah.
When the department head would present their whole budget on a Monday night and have to do it all over again on a Tuesday night.
Right, so maybe you could work it out with the chairman, this board, maybe have him come only for one or the other. Because it may not be a matter of just we have a serious question about part of that budget. Maybe, why don't we just get a review of how it's being spent? And the department heads are the only ones that really have the big picture. And of course, the town manager. So I always found it a benefit, if people want to find out what's going on, they have an opportunity to, and I say, you're right, I don't see the purpose of having it done twice. But I think that's something that could be worked out between the Budget Committee Chairman and the Board of Selectmen Chairman, so that if there is going to be something like that, maybe do it at once,
Right, I mean,
unless it's a serious, big issue that you're trying to resolve.
when I
of
talk
course.
to the fire chief, I'm gonna tell him specifically what we're looking for, not necessarily a repeat of what he did for the Board of Selectmen.
Good, that's good.
Bob?
From a time frame point of view, you had just mentioned that you spent 2 weeks on reviewing the budget and getting it to us. Where do you have time to really have all of these presentations? You had the
Yeah.
fire department, and that was it.
Right, because we didn't have any requests except for the fire department, because, well, obviously, there was a big
Let's assume
change.
you did.
Yeah.
We'd still be waiting for the budget.
I would hope,
Which
I
means
would
that
hope we
The
didn't.
process, as Darrell has
Yeah.
indicated, has to start earlier. If it doesn't start earlier, we're really swimming upstream. And there's, I mean, do we have time to have all of these people come in and, so that the public can hear how the money is being spent? I don't think we do.
Well, point well taken, but it is still an opportunity for the public to see.
You have public comment, so if someone in the public wants to know where their money is going, they can definitely come forward and ask the questions, and if I don't have the answer, I'll make sure to get the answer from the people that do.
Well, most people are too shy to come before a camera because they know it's on camera. And realistically, most people don't want to come up
They can
in
email,
public or
there's,
email.
there's all
But,
sorts
yeah,
of
but-
forums.
When you start getting into their pocketbook, they become very brave.
Yeah, Lori?
Well, you just mentioned email. I noticed on the town website today, for you as the chairman, there's no Plaistow.com email for you. And I think it being the chair of the budget committee, I think the town should supply you with a town email address
I think-
as other,
Or at least the budget committee should have an email
no,
address.
well, I don't mean specifically you, for when you're not the chairman.
Right, like
Should
chair
it should follow the whoever the chairman is that year. You know, it's usually your first initial, your last name, Plaistow.com.
or it could be something like budchair@plaistow.com. Yeah.
We
Julie?
did discuss that at a budget committee meeting before, when we were talking about our internet services. And I don't know what Greg and Jay came up with, 'cause I think they were kind of working on that. But we did suggest that there would be minimal cost under certain conditions to have a budget chair email, and it would pass on to the next
Right.
chairman,
Right.
et cetera, because you also don't want to change names, because then you'd lose the previous email.
Right,
So it would be continuous,
yeah,
and it would be a method that you would have a town, and it also helps with right-to-know requests. Because private emails, how do you do a right-to-know request on private emails? I don't know.
well,
But
that would, if you
that
could bring
becomes a
that
problem.
before the board and make it happen, that
Still
would be
using
great.
them though, private emails.
If that needs to go before the Board of Selectmen, if you could make that happen, that
Well, I
would be,
guess,
that would be awesome.
I just don't know where that went. It was about at least a month ago or more, wasn't it, Jay? I don't know if it was did anything get determined? All right, so Jay
Okay.
just says we have to have that set up,
Okay, can you
so
make that happen?
maybe we can bring it up at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have any old business. Does anybody have any old business they want to discuss? Pete?
Do we ever discuss the water department budget?
We're still waiting on that. It's not finalized yet. Anybody else? I have,
I thought the Board of Selectmen voted on it.
I
Did you,
didn't
did
get
you
it.
vote on the water budget?
Yeah, you did.
Yes,
I didn't get it yet.
let me see if I,
Bob?
I just wanted to give a committee report for the CIP.
Oh, I was gonna, yeah, I was gonna do that in new business,
I
but,
have a draft
That's
order
fine.
department if you want to look at it.
okay. I guess I'll email the finance director and ask for the water budget also. My bit of new business before I let Bob take it away, it's about the default budget. I found this RSA that says that the default budget shall be disclosed and presented for questions and discussion at the first budget hearing held pursuant to RSA 32.5 or RSA 197.6. So my question for the Board of Selectmen is, will I be getting the default budget to present with public hearing? Because it didn't happen that way last year, and I just want to make sure we're following the law.
Okay, you want the default budget?
It's RSA 32.5 or RSA 197.6, and it states the default budget shall be disclosed and presented for questions and discussion at the first budget hearing. So
Which is the 11th?
that would be January 12th. So that was my
Okay.
new business.
Did you already contact the budget, the finance director about that already, or?
I didn't ask him about the default budget
Okay.
yet.
Got it.
Bob?
I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the CIP committee, which I've been a member of now for 4 years. The mission of the committee is to update and fine-tune the town's capital improvement program, the CIP. The main focus the last 3 years has been to extend the life of town vehicles and equipment. So for the last 3 years, starting with the police department 3 years ago, and then fire last year, and this year was the highway department. With the highway garage, which we made sure was large enough to house all of our vehicles for the highway department, as well as their equipment, plows and all of their equipment in that garage. It extends the life of all of the vehicles for the highway department and their equipment. They also have washing facility in there, so when equipment comes in after they've been out salting the roads and things like that, they get sprayed down. That all extends the life. So this results in the highway, certainly extended life of the highway department equipment. And now the CIP this year reflects that, is that extended life. So for example, the dump truck, rather than replacing the dump truck, which is 10 years old, the bed is being replaced, and hopefully we're going to get another 10 years out of it. So that's extended the life of that piece of equipment by almost double. So that was the main focus of the CIP the last few years. There's been other changes, but that's the biggest one that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, because that certainly has an effect on our budget, because police vehicles used to be a part of our budget, and also warrant articles. It reduces the number of warrant articles that we have.
Great news.
Bob, would it make sense, I know in years past, we've had Tim come in and present the CIP. Do you think that would be helpful, or do we have time for that, or? I'm just asking you as your thoughts.
I would say this year, with the lateness of the budget being presented to us, I would say no, not necessary. But I
We
did
can-
feel as though it was important that I just share this
agree.
information
Yep.
with you, because it definitely has had an effect on our budgets the last few
So,
years.
Mr. Sherman, who was here discussing rec and the projects should have been planned for, were any projects like that presented for the CIP?
No,
No.
no. That being said, the first meeting of the CIP was canceled because they weren't ready for us. We've only had one meeting.
You have
And our
one-
wrap-up meeting is going to be
Thursday,
this
right?
coming Thursday. So we haven't had a whole lot of meetings, but this whole thing has been kind of a revolving thing, and I think the CIP is in good shape.
Can you just make sure we get a copy of that this year?
Julian?
And I'd like to add to that, it's not only the
Yes.
highway department, but you'll also notice there's no budgeting for a lot more police vehicles like we had in the past, because we're also, the way the things are being run now, police vehicles are made to last many years longer than they have in the past. So you're not gonna see a lot of requests for new police cars,
Right.
probably for a long time.
They got washing facilities, too.
And the way they're rotating them into the detail fund. They're not using regular police department vehicles for details anymore, which is, they're not running out in town for 12, 13 hours a day and wearing those vehicles out, by running their engines and stuff. So they're only being used for patrols now, and detailed vehicles are used for details, and the detailed vehicles don't come out of the normal funding of the town. So that's a big change, too.
Yes,
You're
it
not
is.
seeing that expenditure for police vehicles that we had in the past.
So you'll know a bit more after Thursday where we
Yeah.
stand, so you can present that next week, too. Bob?
I was at that meeting, and I got to give some accolades to the town manager in just the way Mark was explaining the process of the vehicles, how we've been doing it in the past. We had vehicles going in, just the amount of money that was being set aside for some of these vehicles replacements, and instead of us every 10 years or 5 years, he was moving them out 15 years, and instead of getting a brand new vehicle, we were doing our own work on the vehicles, be it body work, be it in some cases, it was a matter of taking the body off of the chassis off of a frame and engine. I mean, it's a lot cheaper to replace the cab on a truck that is rotted out than for a truck that only has 50,000 miles on it, and you get rid of it because the cab rotted off. They're now looking into replacing just the cab, or replacing the bed, or the dump, or whatever. So we're not throwing out everything on the truck. We're taking a vehicle that is performed well and upgrading, just replacing things on it now, which has been huge. But one of the things they did bring up was the fire department's aerial truck, that the pistons are now going. There's an incredible amount of money that needs to be put into this vehicle. And there was some talk of trying to replace that, what it's going to cost to replace it, how they will replace it. And every time they looked at the different, what else is out there, prices have increased a considerable amount of what we were putting aside for. So a lot of work has been done and looked into what we're spending, how we can save money. And I got to give them credit. They absolutely made some serious changes into the way we spend money and some of the projects that we're dumping money into. And I gotta say, it was pretty impressive to see the work that went into this.
Bob?
One other point which Robert has brought to mind, it looks like the ladder truck, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The tower
The
truck?
tower.
Power, yes.
Tower truck is going to have to be replaced sooner than later.
I know he was talking about it last year.
And the CIP indicated that it was a $500,000 or $600,000 piece of equipment.
It's millions.
Twice that.
I'm sure it's millions.
So this is going to come upon us, maybe not this next year, but the year after. It's going to be another big expense for the fire department, for the town, to invest in a newer tow truck.
Wasn't that truck, Bob, that previous fire chief, I believe, bought that truck used and saved the town over $1 million purchasing that truck. And I thought that the money to replace it had been in the CIP, and I don't remember the math, if there was a leftover. I thought we were saving to buy $1.5 million truck, and he found that one for a fraction of that, with $300,000 or $350,000, so I don't remember the number. So I didn't know if they just stopped putting money in that CIP because we had saved so much on that, or obviously not if they're saying that.
I would say that's not the case, because we've always had a fire equipment warrant article that's been at least $100,000, and I think currently it's
Okay,
115.
so it wasn't truck specific, it was just a general.
Putting it in the
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's right, all right.
But there was a program,
Yeah.
and for some reason, the tower truck is not going to last as long as
It
what
was
was
anticipated.
anticipated.
Yeah.
And we just had an expenditure a few years ago on a new tanker, so
Right.
that wasn't
Yes.
cheap.
That was $500,000.
Yeah. So that brought that balance down.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. I think even though it's a lot to go over, I think we're in good shape. I'll get a schedule out to everybody too, if they didn't take notes today. And I will adjourn the meeting at exactly 8 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.